Today, we're stepping inside a kind of hidden factory. It's a place that takes a forgotten byproduct of rice milling and performs a little bit of industrial alchemy, turning it into two absolutely essential commodities. This is the story of how simple grain becomes gold.
It all really starts with this one powerful question. What if something we normally discard could actually become a cornerstone of our entire food chain? Well, that's the story of rice bran, a material with incredible, but very, very perishable potential.
So, this whole process begins at the rice mill. For every single grain of white rice we eat, there's this thin, brownish layer that gets polished right off. That is rice bran, and from the very moment it's created, a frantic race against the clock begins.
So what exactly is rice bran? Well, it's that nutrient-dense layer, and it is packed with vitamins and, most importantly for our story, a really high oil content. We're talking up to 25%. That oil is the prize. The entire plant we're exploring is built for one purpose, and one purpose only, to capture it.
But here's the core challenge. The moment that bran is separated from the grain, an enzyme called lipase just goes to work, rapidly degrading the oil. And if it's left unchecked, the free fatty acid level can skyrocket from a healthy 2% to a completely unusable 80% in just a week. For this entire process, speed is everything.
So, to win this race, the fresh bran has to pass through what you could call a preparation gauntlet. And these aren't just simple cleaning steps, okay? This is a precise ritual designed to prepare every single particle for the most efficient oil extraction possible.
This preparation happens in 3 stages. First, rigorous cleaning. Then, it's conditioned with steam to hit a perfect moisture sweet spot, because if it's too dry, it becomes dust, but too wet, and it clogs all the machines. The final step is compressing it into these thin pellets. Now, this is key. Palletizing doesn't just shape the bran, it actually ruptures the oil cells and massively increases the surface area, making the oil inside accessible for extraction.
And now, we arrive at the very heart of the plant, the extractor. Inside this massive, sealed, and totally explosion-proof vessel is where the real magic happens. The bran pellets are about to meet their washing agent, a solvent called hexane.
This brings us to a really simple but brilliant engineering question. How do you wash something to get it as clean as possible while using the least amount of cleaning fluid? Well, the answer lies in a fantastic principle called counter-current flow.
Okay, imagine 2 conveyor belts moving in opposite directions. The fresh bran, full of oil, enters on one side. The fresh solvent, hexane, enters on the other. This means the dirtiest bran gets a first wash with slightly used solvent. And as it gets cleaner, it meets progressively purer solvent. Then, right at the end, the almost clean bran gets a final wash with pure hexane to strip out the very last drops of oil. It's a remarkably efficient system.
And the efficiency? It's just staggering. The bran enters the process with around 18% oil content. By the time it leaves, less than 1.5% of that oil remains. Nearly all of the valuable oil has been successfully washed right out.
So at this point, the process splits. The extractor has done its job, separating the single input, rice bran, into 2 totally distinct streams. And each one is about to begin its own unique journey of transformation. On one hand, we have the solids, and they're called mark. This is the spent bran, now completely saturated with hexane. On the other, we have the liquid, called miscela, a golden mixture of the extracted oil and the hexane. 2 intermediate products, 2 very different destinies.
So let's follow the path of the solids first. The mark is currently unusable. I mean, it's soaked in a solvent. It now enters this towering vessel called the desolventizer toaster, or just DT, to begin its transformation into valuable animal feed.
Inside the DT, steam meticulously removes every last trace of hexane. What emerges is something called de-oiled rice bran, or DORB, and its value has been completely transformed. While the oil is gone, it's now a concentrated source of protein for muscle growth, fiber for digestion, and phosphorus for bone formation, a truly premium ingredient for animal feed.
Meanwhile, that liquid stream, the miscela, is on its own journey. This mixture of oil and solvent enters the distillation section of the plant, where the goal is pretty simple: separate the valuable oil from the hexane.
This separation happens in 3 escalating stages of heating and evaporation, pushing the oil concentration from just 25% to over 90%. But the most critical step is the last one. Direct steam is injected into the hot oil under a vacuum. Now, the vacuum lowers the boiling point,
allowing the steam to effectively strip away the final, stubborn molecules of solvent without damaging the oil, leaving it pure.
But hang on, what happened to all that hexane solvent we just boiled off? It doesn't just disappear. In fact, its recovery is the invisible economic and environmental engine that makes this entire process viable in the first place. The efficiency of the system is just incredible. All that hexane vapor from the DHT and the distillation columns is captured, cooled back into a liquid, and sent right back to the beginning of the process to wash more bran. In a well-run plant, over 99% of the solvent is constantly recycled in a closed loop.
You know, this constant recycling loop highlights an incredible challenge. Let's not forget what we're dealing with here. This quote from the source material puts it perfectly. This is a plant handling a highly flammable liquid at high temperatures, nonstop. The level of precision required is just immense.
Just how flammable is hexane? Well, its lower explosive limit is a mere 1.1% in the air. That means every single piece of equipment has to be flameproof. Every vessel is grounded to prevent even a single static spark. The entire facility is a masterclass in safety engineering and operational discipline.
So, we've seen this intricate journey, from a humble byproduct all the way to 2 finished products. But what is the real-world purpose? Why does all this incredible engineering actually matter?
Well, the impact is huge. The de-oiled rice bran becomes a cornerstone of the animal feed industry, supporting the poultry, dairy, and fish farms that feed a nation. And at the same time, the crude rice bran oil begins its own journey to refineries, where it's turned into healthy cooking oil for our kitchens and high-value ingredients for cosmetics and pharmaceuticals.
So from a single forgotten layer on a grain of rice, 2 essential products are born. It just shows how much value can be hidden in plain sight, and it really makes you wonder, what other invisible, complex, and brilliant factories are humming away out there, quietly powering the world around us?